Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Partner Spotlight webinar. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you all to Tony, as I'm sure you've all probably met Tony over the years. He's been with FreeAgent a while now and is often seen at most of the events and on many a webinar. You seem to
Mhm.
spend your whole life on Zoom, quite frankly, Tony.
I do. It's either Zoom or building slides, mate. They're the two things.
That's what your job is,
Yeah,
slide
yeah.
builder and Zoomer.
That's fine. Yeah.
Brilliant. First of all, guys, can you all just confirm you can hear and see us? Say hello in the chat so we know you're all there. Um, and then throughout this session, guys, obviously, if you put stuff into the chat, absolutely fine. We'll try and keep an eye on it. But if you want a question answered and you don't want us to end this session until that question is answered, stick it into the Q&A bit. And that way I can ensure that we've got that all covered. So we have got Jem, Georgina, Patrick, Marcus. Thank you very much for all confirming you can see and hear us, and good morning to you all. On this, I don't know what it's like where you are, but this is a blue sky, very sunny Edinburgh. Cold, Baltic cold, but lovely. How's it your end, Tony?
Um, Disgusting, I think is probably the right way to describe it. Grey, miserable, rain coming in sideways. We're having our roof replaced. It was supposed to be this week, and they put the scaffolding up on Monday, and not a single tile has been removed, and there's just a nice castle outside our house that my daughter seems to intent on climbing, but at 1 year old, she's definitely not allowed on scaffolding. So, yeah, awful here, mate. Can report. So, not missing anything.
Brilliant. Yeah, a few people in the comments saying the weather's pants in Tamworth, flooding over at where Patrick is. Yeah, not good. Brilliant. Right, Tony, introduce yourself properly rather than me just saying you're a Zoomer and a slide builder. Go on. So tell us your job role and stuff and what you do with Free Agent.
So my role with Free Agents, I'm the Senior Digital Enablement Manager, which is the role that I've held there for a couple of years. So I have kind of like three bits that I kind of primarily either lead or support on. The three bits are the practice integrations piece. So for the last year and a half or so, we've been heavily focused on sort of bringing our ecosystem up to speed. Probably, leading to conversations like this. Engage App's been a huge part of that, which has been great. And the other two bits that I kind of get involved with are so what we call, I guess, sales enablement. So ensuring that the internally within Free Agent that we've got a good practice angle. My background being from practice. And then the final piece is slide builder and Zoomer. So talking on stages, doing webinars. You'll find me on LinkedIn most days. Kind of presence within the marketplace, and I guess you could quietly call it thought leadership. They're the th main three areas that I focus on. Although I get involved in tons of other stuff as well on a sort of bit part basis. In terms of my background, I spent the first 10 years of my career sort of bouncing around practice and industry. Never quite found my spiritual home, shall we say. And I managed to escape to the technology world and joined Zero. So I was at Zero for a couple of years, took a year out to go traveling, and I've been at Free Agent now for coming up 6.5 years. So the longest stint I've ever done in a job. So that is my slightly strange and potted history.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So we integrated with you guys back in May and announced our partnership. And for those that are on this session, we have two very definitive terms in the world of Engager. We have an integration where we plug into them and they plug into us, and that is it. That is the relationship. And then we have our partnerships where yes, we integrate, but we are actively working together to try and make that integration more powerful all the time. And we work together on all various things such as webinars and stuff like that. And I've half my diary in October is booked up with webinars for Free Agent. They've
It
been
is, yeah.
rather busy. But yeah, and what we have with Free Agent is very much a partnership, and it's a very good partnership that we get a lot of inquiries that have said, "Oh, Free Agent sent us," and like that's amazing. We love that because we don't get that from any other finance management softwares. So that's brilliant that it's a very mutual partnership and we're recommending each other. So, but also it means we've got a deeper integration, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail later on because, and we'll show you on Engager what you can do if you're using FreeAgent both as a practice, but even if you've not got your practice on FreeAgent, you can still use the integration to surface information about your clients from their FreeAgent accounts, which we can't do with anyone else. So that's really cool. And we've got some other ideas about what we're doing, what we want to do with that in the future as well. But yeah, I mean, Tony, tell our uh, community, like free agent, we know you're based in Edinburgh. I suppose most people know that you got brought out by RBS pre-COVID, or do you
2018 it was. 2018.
2018?
Yeah, 6 years.
Um, and that
Just
was after a long.
I joined just after, so that's how I remember it is yeah, I joined just after.
Brilliant, because you know that was a long-term relationship before the acquisition. Anyway, like RBS were offering free agent accounts free of charge for all their business customers. Um, and then there's the acquisition in 2018, and I think unfairly, free agents not had the press coverage it deserves in the industry for how good a software it is and what clients you can and can't help and stuff like that. So talk us through what free agent does, what your ideal clients are, who are you best suited helping, because one of the things I love about you guys is that you know who you can and can't help.
Yeah, that's very
And
true.
whilst that list of who you can help is growing and the list of people you don't want think you can help as well is shrinking, you still have a very clear understanding of where you fit in the market, really.
Indeed. So I guess that's a really good synopsis, the best one I've heard. So thanks for that, mate. And I'll fill in some of the gaps. So I think we started life very much as a freelancers and contractors product. So as a a really good bit of kit for the one man band who needed something to manage their finances on. So Ed, Ollie, and Rowan were the original three co-founders. They were all in varying different forms, contractors of some sort or other. Um, and they came together to say, we couldn't find something that did this in the marketplace, so let's build something. So they between the three of them sort of put this initial prototype together and took it to market, and there was an appetite for it there. Um, that kind of stance remained the same for, I guess, probably certainly the first five, maybe even stretching up to the first 10 years of free agent's life. And then as the product got better and as as the features set improved somewhere along the line, we kind of realized that actually, that it was suitable for sort of slightly larger businesses, and and we could look at sort of not just the one man band, two, three, five, maybe even 10 person businesses. And then obviously the acquisition by the bank happened, which meant that things changed, but not like it wasn't like a suddenly an overnight. And like if you've been into the free agent offices, like there's no NatWest branding anywhere. We're still very much an independent company, and and a real sort of post acquisition success story, I think. I think that's definitely fair to say. Um, and then sort of as we've kind of grown over the years, there sort of came a tipping point where we sort of realized, okay, there's probably a couple of bits that we need to do, and one of those is to to sort of get the message out there better, to help to explain to people that, do you know what? Yeah, we are great for contractors and freelancers, and that will always be a really strong place for free agent, but actually, those smaller businesses, those micro businesses actually, work really well where they're more simple than they are complicated. Um, and then the second piece of that puzzle was the practice piece, was the accountants and bookkeepers piece, which we'll come to in a little bit. But the just focusing on the business side of things first, what we've always had, and I'm sure that there will be counter arguments from other corners of the cloud accounting bookkeeping software world, but what we've always had is a laser focus on simplicity and a laser focus on like this thing needs to be dealt with for our user base, and we need to be able to make that complicated thing simple, as unbreakable as possible and like just logical and easy to use. And what we won't do is sacrifice the ease of use and the simplicity of FreeAgent to try and service much bigger businesses, because there's definitely a line somewhere of, okay, like, we need to be able to build everything through the lens of simplicity, take that complicated thing and make it easy. And if we can't do that, then that's not our they're not our target audience, right? And there will be some tiny businesses who are complicated in a strange way that aren't suitable for FreeAgent, but depending on what statistics you look at, 99 to 95% of UK businesses kind of fall within the demographic that FreeAgent's aiming at, which is probably enough of them,
Yeah.
enough of the overall market for us to worry about. Um, and I think you're right in terms of the coverage, and what we've been pretty good at over the years is just kind of getting on with our stuff. And we're a pretty modest bunch. I exclude myself from that because I obviously like to sound my own voice. I'm here, anyone that's known me knows that's the truth. But we're a modest bunch, and we probably haven't gone out and sort of hammered and banged the drum in people's faces. And when other people are doing that, it's easy to sort of kind of get swept up in that. Um, and we've just been quietly kind of plugging away, getting through the work, and improving the product and expanding what we're able to do. And I think in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, we've always worked with accountants and bookkeepers. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we've really sort of prioritized um, trying to build the things that make their lives easier, not just on a one client basis, but on 100 client basis or 1,000 client basis, right? And you know what that's like when you sit down and go, I can do this one thing once and that's great, but if I try and do it 10 times, I've still got to do it 10 times rather than I've got to do it once and that will create the 10 things, right? So we have this concept internally, and I'll credit my man Stu McEwen for it because I believe it is his. I know it's his origin, and we talk about these two concepts of filling the floor and raising the ceiling. So filling the floor is listening to, like, when an accountant or a bookkeeper sits down in their chair and starts doing their work, and then they come up against something that makes them go, that's filling the floor. That's like the day-to-day stuff that you just need to do to get out the door at 5:30, not 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, or heaven forbid, being in on the weekend. And what we sort of recognized was that there was some stuff in FreeAgent that was really, really good for our end users, because our end user NPS is 75 consistently, and best in class. And our practice one is good, but it's in the 50s, it's not in the 70s, and we want to take that same magic and apply it to our practices so that they're able to enjoy the same experience of using FreeAgent that our end users are. And so what we've done over the last, it's always been there, but it's definitely ramped over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, is really increase the people that focus on practices internally and started to fill in some of the gaps, um, and and build things that people have grumbled about for a while in FreeAgent. So depreciation is a good example of this, right? Our depreciation was great for like a contractor who had a laptop, but it wasn't great for somebody who'd got like two or three things that they wanted to depreciate on different time levels, or land and buildings or something. So that was one of the things that we fixed this year. Big project, built it all out. Now it's we put it in front of our user base at the road shows in the spring and said. I said to a room full of people, look, does this kind of now broadly do what you'd expect it to do for the day-to-day basis? And everybody went, yeah, yeah, it does. It didn't previously, but now it does. So I can sort of forget about depreciation being a slight workaround or grumble, or having to do some journals to fix it within FreeAgent. Um, so that's kind of like where we've been at, and what we're doing is working in a more targeted way with the practice community to be able to kind of just fill in those gaps and also put some delight moments in there as well. So the one that always springs to mind is being able to now push one button and reconsent all of your client bank feeds on behalf of your client. I put that out on LinkedIn. That was just like the best engagement I've ever had on a sort of feature announcement in on LinkedIn for anything I've ever done. People just like, wow, this is brilliant. Now I don't have to call my clients up and tell them, can you go and refresh your bank feed and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably a good sort of synopsis of where we're at, and we're starting to feel the kind of the love back on from the practice side, and from accountants and bookkeepers, on the basis that they can really see that we're trying to solve like kind of problems that they have on a day-to-day basis, and not at the expense of kind of going like, here's this amazing new shiny whizzy thing that's brilliant and that in great in theory, but if I'm not able to just kind of do the bedrock, the compliance, the day-to-day stuff, then I can't get to that thing. So still a bit of that, obviously, we're a software company at the end of the day, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and it's so cool to be part of.
Yeah, and that that banking reconnection thing,
Mm,
like I was literally sat there this morning. So obviously, I've still got my own firm.
yep.
Now, I don't get involved in huge amounts in my own firm, but I still have my own client base. And I literally had to go into one of your fellow competitors, and I was looking through the books. It's like, this doesn't look right. Oh, I've got to
Bank
redo the
feed's
bank
dropped out.
connection. It's like, come on. Whereas I just go into the free agent, see all my free agent clients. It tells me, is there any issues with the bank feed connection? I can go refresh, and it does it all. And it's like, oh. And then I think I was on my third client this morning of doing it. It's like, this is getting ridiculous.
Mm.
Like, why can't they have what free agent have got? It's just so much easier. Um,
Sure, they'll work it out sooner or later, mate. It's nice.
oh, yeah,
It's nice to be the only one for a while, right?
yeah, they'll get there eventually. But yeah, but I think what's even more interesting though is so testament to Stu again, because when you guys launched that,
Mm,
within days of that going live, Stu was in my inbox saying, "We've done this. How could we work with Client Engager to bring that into Engager for our users?" And it's like, no other FMS solution goes, "We've just launched this. We can get it onto our API. How would your users benefit,
mm.
or how would our mutual users benefit from us doing this?" And I just love the fact that they are always thinking of like not just in free agent, but how can we now make this even easier for everyone else? And I think that's just a brilliant way to do it.
It's definitely nice to see, and I guess we are blessed in some ways that we don't have the scale of the sort of um, zeros and the QuickBooks is to kind of make that more challenging. When you've got a million customers, it's more difficult to do that kind of stuff. It shouldn't be, but sometimes it can be, all right. So yeah, and that's part of the integration strategy, which we kind of touched on, which is we sort of sat on integrations for a long time, and we had the sort of key ones in the markets like your Dex, your auto entries, your tax calcs, your irises. Um, and we've always sort of oscillated on, yeah, we value like that as an idea, or no we don't, yes we do, no we don't. Rowan is extremely big on ecosystem, and what we kind of want to get to is a place where we work with like our sort of core curated set of partnerships, as you describe it, to make it very easy to choose free agent as part of your app stack, which hasn't been historically. And we sort of came to the conclusion from speaking to our partners or people that weren't our partners that actually it's like, well, if I can integrate with my two bookkeeping tools and I really like Engager app, which obviously they would, um, but free agent doesn't integrate with it, that makes it much more difficult for me to choose free agent, because the reality of it is that the book you've got other tools that sit between all these ledger products, which a lot of practices use more than one ledger product now. That's the common behavior, not just the single choice. Um, and you find yourself in that situation where you're being sort of like quiet quit on before you've even had the conversation, because they've looked for an integration, they can't find it. And then you've got the opposite end of that, which is like, oh, there's 2,000 apps on the App Store, brilliant. And then your accountants and bookkeepers are going, where on earth do I start? I've got no idea what's good, what's not. So we sort of want to keep that list sort of relatively tight, and work on the basis that we work together on, with our key partners, so that we can do that kind of stuff, and we can make the decision to use free agent, an easy one, not oh, I really just wish it did this integration or it just did this thing, right? So there's still work to do, but we made big strides into it this year.
Definitely. And I think that partnership with NatWest RBS/Metal Bank is phenomenal as well. Um, it's almost a shame that the NatWest RBS integration is not as powerful as the Metal one. Like, so obviously, I've got my own practice. I've got Engager, but on the sideline of all of that, I do a bit of speaking and podcasting and stuff. So I've got my own little limited company for all of that, and I bank through Metal, and I use Free Agent for that, and that integration, that depth is phenomenal. And Patrick's asked in the questions about, oh, are you? He uses Coconut for small non-VAT registered contractors, and that's like £7 a month. Integrates well with Simple Tax, etc. Why should I recommend FreeAgent to my clients rather than Coconut? And my recommendation there, Patrick, is because you can give them a free bookkeeping solution and a free banking solution in one. And the beauty of the integration with Metal and FreeAgent is like I can go into my Metal bank account right now, and it will tell me because of the information in Zero in FreeAgent how much VAT I should have put to one side. It can tell me this is what your corp tax bill is going to be at the moment based on everything you've put into FreeAgent. And I can go, oh, I've got a pot for that corp tax. Have I got that much money in the pot yet? Yes, I have. Great. Or I've just made a huge purchase. Metal's telling me my VAT bill is now currently sat at this amount. I've got this amount in my pot. I'll transfer some of that back and spend that now. That's more disposable income for me. So if that's the kind of insights that your businesses need to see, which I think it is, then why would you not give them better insight and free of charge software because of that integration and that partnership there? Metal's a really interesting proposition in the banking world at the moment.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm very impressed with it so far.
That's really good to hear, and I think that it's probably taken us a bit longer to get to where we are now with this stuff, but it feels to me like it's accelerating. So the way I like to describe it is, between your bookkeeping software and your bank, you've got like a wall, and in that wall there is usually kind of like one pipe that pushes data in, and sometimes that pipe gets a bit blocked up occasionally, particularly if you're using a third party provider, which we don't do. We built all our own bank feeds, which in the early days of open banking was a huge USP for us because they worked. And we were hearing every single day that our competitors weren't working. That's leveled out a bit now. They've kind of sorted that sort of stuff out in the main, but still a real advantage. Um, and that's kind of about it, right? There's that wall, and then there's the data comes through, and that's sort of about it. And there's odd partnerships around the globe with various different providers that sort of maybe tackle that in a little bit. But what we've sort of been able to do with Metal is start to take that wall down so that the experience between your bank and your bookkeeping software doesn't feel like two completely separate things with a one-way pipe through the wall. It feels like, oh, do you know what? Actually, it's like a half wall, like a stable door or something, where actually, there is some stuff that happens within your bank that doesn't come across to FreeAgent. But if you take you can assign transaction codes within your bank if that's the app that you like to use, and then that'll pull through to FreeAgent. You can take photos, that'll pull through to FreeAgent as well. And you're able to see the tax timeline now within Metal and also within NatWest. So interesting, like some of the stuff you mentioned earlier, mate. They did some work on that earlier. So some in the year, so some of the NatWest stuff that was in Metal now pulls through into NatWest as well. So like
Brilliant.
invoicing and the tax timeline and things as well. And there's obviously kind of a bit more planned in this area. And I think that I raised it internally. We were talking about some bits and pieces on, what do we want to talk about? What do we want to focus? And we had a big push on open banking when it first kind of landed, because obviously we had the bank and lots of access to some, super smart people who know about all this stuff within the bank and within FreeAgent as well. And actually, we've maybe moved away from it a little bit in terms of our messaging, because what we wanted to do was make sure that we weren't kind of sending the message that FreeAgent is free if you're a bank customer, and that was it. Because actually there's like, people naturally assume it'll only be a quarter of the product, or it'll be riddled with ads, or it'll be, there'll be some sort of like subpar experience, but that's not the case. It's not free, it's just subsidized by the bank on the basis that they want you to have a nice experience of being a bank customer. And obviously we're owned by them, so it works nicely. And that sort of taking down of that wall, that sort of that flow of, kind of work going between the two should be how it feels, right? That should be, you're creating the transactions there. It shouldn't feel like this is barrier and then suddenly there's your accounting software. So it's good to hear that you've had that experience. With regards to the Coconut question, I don't know Coconut as a product inside and out, so I won't comment on exactly what they do. Um, what my understanding of that situation, if you were to make a comparison, was that Coconut is a sort of originally was a bank first product that then kind of built in the accounting features to sort of make it easy for your end user. And, we've heard some good feedback on it. Um, it's FreeAgent is a ledger first product that is easier to use as an accountant or a bookkeeper, but still has that level of ease of use. Like our mobile apps, um, I think
Phenomenal.
I think it's comfortably the best in class. Photos of receipts pulling through with OCR technology, being able to explain your bank transactions in there, and and all kinds of cool stuff within the mobile app. So, and yeah, so as Johan said, if you're a Metal or a NatWest customer, it's there's no charge for the software. Or the bank subsidizes it on your behalf. So I would urge you to take a look at it because I think as a practitioner, the experience that you would get um, would probably be better.
Yeah. I
But like I
mean,
said, I don't know Coconut inside and out, so I can't comment. But I'd urge you to take a look
Patrick's just said, but Johan clients are reluctant to move even for
because
free
they
software.
are.
They are, but this is where we need to be better at pitching what we're offering. So
Mm.
when your client sits there and goes, "Oh crap, VAT bill, I've not got that much put to one side," that's the best pain point to sell Metal and Free Agent on, because I just go there and go, if you were banking with Metal, that would tell you at all times what your VAT bill's looking like, and you can make sure then your pot's got that much money in, and we don't have to have this conversation every 3 months that you've not got enough put to one side.
Well, you
Or
have to pay some tax, and the
yeah,
paying your accountant is not insurance against tax. Yeah.
yeah, like corporation tax, I'd forgotten about that. It's like, well, you can't in Metal. Like, it's don't just go out to them all going, oh, you can do this for free, because that's not going to work. You need to go out to them and go and wait for their pain point and go, I've got a solution to that pain point. That I can solve that problem for you. There's some initial moving, but actually, look at this. How good is that? And like, I mean, technically, you don't even need the free agent app on your mobile phone. You just need the Metal app, because you can explain transactions, you can raise invoices off the Metal app, which then go into your free agent app automatically. Like, you can simplify it all, and it's just about seeing the opportunities to push the right solution for the right clients. Like,
I
it's
think
very, very powerful.
what we've seen over the years, and obviously there's some element of reverse survivorship bias in the sense that our partners like what we do, and the ones we speak to are our partners, and therefore they still do give us their raw and honest feedback, like Diane has in the chat. So I appreciate that, and it's the only way that we improve the product is listening to our users, and and some element of innovation on our side as well. But um, the thing that we constantly hear is there's this imaginary line above and below which life is very different. So this imaginary line that I'm talking about is your client's ability to be able to use accounting software, particularly at the smaller end of the market where they are price sensitive, right? So if they don't want to pay you to do the bookkeeping, they want to do it themselves. The worry is always with that is they're going to get it wrong. And if they get it wrong, you're probably going to end up spending more time fixing it than you would have done if you'd just done it yourself in the first place. And I was talking to a practitioner not that long ago, and he charges more if you do the bookkeeping yourself than he does if you don't do the bookkeeping yourself. So if they do the bookkeeping, the price is less because they know it will be done right the first time. They won't have to go and do all the unpicking. But what we hear is that the free agent allows end users to get it right more than they get it wrong, and they'd be above that line, so that when you come to do the work, there'd obviously be the odd mistake here or there, or the odd thing that you use your training and experience to correct or claim or whatever it might be, but you're not facing that horrible, like, huge unpick job regularly as the norm. You're facing like, oh, John, yeah, it's been a pretty good job of that. Yeah, great.
80%, I'll take
Yeah,
that.
absolutely right. And that's when it all boils down. You're saying, kind of what is it that you do differently to the others? It's like that. That's really is one of the things that ultimately helps our end users to get it right for our accountants and bookkeepers. And then actually, then when we plug the practice side questions, practice side like asks, then that suddenly that user experience shoots, like up. And it feels like we're on that trajectory. So
Cool.
yeah.
So speaking of that upwards trajectory, then what's coming
Yes.
up? What can you tell us without getting yourself sacked? Uh,
So I actually went to our director of product, Craig, and said, "What can I say?" So we have this very little known page on our website, which if you go to, you'll be like, "This feels completely different to all the other branding on FreeAgent's website," because it hasn't been updated for some time, and we are about to update it, which is how I came to know that it existed, having been at FreeAgent for 6 years and not knowing that it was there. It's called the FreeAgent Depot. So if you put in FreeAgent Depot, it tells you here's some of the stuff we built recently, and here's some of the stuff that's coming. We also have a similar page, which is a timeline page, which is much snazzier and got some cool video bits and pieces going on in the background, which tells you what's happened in FreeAgent and links out to the blog posts and the KB articles. So I went there just to make sure that I was not going to get myself sacked and talk about something that I shouldn't. But we're similar to you, mate. We're quite open about what we're trying to change and what we're working on. And you know, and as ever with these things, there's a jumping off point where you have to put something out there and then iterate from there. So the one of the big projects that we're tackling at the moment is reporting within FreeAgent because she's one from accountants and bookkeepers we hear again and again and again. We'd like what you've got's not terrible. We just like a bit more flexibility, a couple of extra features that will allow us to just go a bit deeper so that when we hit that point of like, oh, they've got three revenue streams now, or like, oh, they've hired the 10th, 12th, and 15th members of staff, and it just starts to get a bit more complicated. We don't want to be in a point where we have to move off free agent because actually the rest of it works fine. It's the output that is the bit we just need a little bit more from. So not going into huge amounts of detail, but that's a big project with a lot of people working on it internally at the moment, which will some of the stuff will start to come through sort of not in the not too distant future, and that will probably rumble on for the rest of this year and I would imagine probably at least half, if not most of next year where we continue to sort of build out. We've got a kind of endpoint vision of where we'd like to get to, and there's a lot of steps along that way. It's been nicely mapped out. So I won't go into the details of it, but reporting is one that is starting to now take shape. The work is underway. The business is all in agreement that this is something that we need to do. So there's that. So also on that list on the Free Agent Depot is CIS for contractors. So this is a repeat, an ongoing request that we've had from many of our users to build something out for the contractor side of CIS, not the subcontractor side. We've already got the subcontractor side. So the initial version won't be the full kind of end to end. You can click a button and file it into HMRC's solution, but the bookkeeping piece we're looking at currently. No timelines on that one, but the decision's been made to get cracking with that one, and hopefully, as ever with these things, um, the build phases all seem to take less time than I expect them to, and I'm very lay when it comes to the product stuff. But that's another sort of big one for us that if we can take that and make that simple and easy to use, I think that will open up lots of stuff for the community. Um, we've got some improvements coming to our OCR app. So we've got Smart Capture. So Smart Capture currently allows you to take photos, and it will do two things. It will create an expense, and then or it will allow you an out-of-pocket expense, or it'll allow you to or it'll automatically take it. And if it can find a transaction that matches the date and either 2 days either side and matches the amount, it will just automatically attach the image to the transaction. And we're building on that to take in another type of transaction within FreeAgent, which is hotly requested. Won't be the end game, but it will be a big step forward in that sort of data collection journey. So that is underway and not a million miles away from being out there. Um, and then sort of like just more sort of like ethereally, like more high level rather than specific features. So just the tackling of like accountants problems. So like we talked about this idea of sort of initially we sort of sat alongside accountants but just really spoke to the end user and we weren't so fussed about working directly with them, and it just kind of happened as a matter of course. Then we moved more towards this idea of like sitting next to the accountants and bookkeepers and like both looking at the same problem and saying like, how can we solve that problem for you? Because we know it's your problem and we want to solve it for you. And now it's more sort of like, okay, well, we feel like we've not wholly solved it, but we're above the line in there, and we think the experience there is really good. So sort of swinging around and looking directly at the accountants and bookkeepers and saying, what are the problems you experience in using software, sat in your chair every day, doing your job inside your four practice walls, and um, wanting to help to really make their lives easy. So things like being able to do things in bulk, being able to find errors and and make that process easier and make fixing them easier, and just continue to just pick away at those little kind of I just wish it did this thing and that would unlock that and make that much easier at scale. Yeah. So essentially trying to make the lives of our accountants and bookkeepers as joyful using FreeAgent as it is for our small business customers.
Makes a lot of sense. Um, Diane's just asked in the comments, in the questions, in Engager, I like being able to suggest and vote on changes. Is this something we can do with FreeAgent? I always get involved with helping. Recently did payroll notices, but I'd love to be able to suggest other changes. How would they go about doing that?
So my recommendation would always be to just speak to your account manager. So your account manager should be able to do two things. So they should be able to um, put you forward as part of our research and beta testing group. So we have a sort of large pool of our partners that we go to when we've got a problem that we're trying to solve, rather than just coming up with the solution. We like to go to them and find out what is what is going on, in their worlds, and actually what's the problem, not just trying to build something that might be wrong. And then the second thing is obviously just sort of straight up feature requests. So if you've got something that you would like to see, outline it as much detail as possible, send it over to your account manager, and then they can push it through into the product teams so that it filters into how they do their research and then design and build the solutions. And we do try to speak to as many as we can throughout that process and make sure that they've been tested and beta tested. So you'll laugh. The post you were talking about earlier, so the workflow you were talking about earlier, Johan, where Stu contacted you and said, "Look, we built this thing." You'll laugh. So I put my post up on LinkedIn, and um, there was a slight error in the way I'd worded how it worked slightly. Something to do with, it escapes me now, but it was something to do with um, the 90-day reconsent. So you've got the 90-day reconsent, and then you've got a period of 90 days after the reconsent in which the agent can still reconsent. But once it goes over that 90 days, then it has to be the end user puts the details back in again. So essentially, you've got 6 months in order to if you do nothing, will it expire, and you'll need to re-enter the details rather than just being able to say those details are still correct. After the FSA made those changes due to industry lobbying. So I put this post up and it was slightly wrong. And they pointed out it was slightly wrong and asked if I would edit it. And I hadn't actually seen the "could you edit your post, please" tone thing. And then basically, like, everyone kind of jumped in and went, "Oh, yeah, actually, maybe it should do that. Could we fix that? Is that easy?" And by the time that I'd come round to edit the post, they'd fixed it. So it did what my post had said, which I thought was fabulous.
There you
And
go.
I'm not claiming
Brilliant.
any. So all we had to do is this idiot gone out to the public and told everyone it did something they didn't do, and we had to scrap it around for half a day, improving the fiction. That's not how it normally works. Obviously, we normally have a lot more um, sort of process behind making these decisions and making these bits and pieces, because obviously they can affect other bits of the app, and we have almost no downtime at FreeAgent, which is another statistic that we're very proud of. Um, but yeah, I do think that those types of things are nice to still have that sort of agility to be able to fix these things when they do present an opportunity to improve the experience.
Definitely. Definitely. Right. I'm going to jump in and share my screen here because whilst obviously it's great if accountants and bookkeepers are using FreeAgent for their own practice, it's not the end of the world if they're not, because with FreeAgent and Engager, we're still able to surface a lot of information that we can't do in with other providers. So whilst you might not move your own firm, it's still worthwhile having a think about the value that FreeAgent being used by your clients has to you as the accountant and bookkeeper
Mm.
in your practice management tool. So I'm going to focus a little demonstration on that. It says, let's make sure I screen this time. Definitely shared the wrong screen a few months ago and divulged all sorts of planning that I shouldn't have done. And I have my phone on Do Not Disturb, so when I came off the webinar, I had loads of messages from Ash and Andy going, "You've done this!
No, yeah.
Stop sharing the screen! Stop sharing the screen!" I'm so sorry. But yeah, right. So this is our demo account, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our clients, and I'm going to go to this. Yeah, we'll go to the best build client. So when you've integrated your firm into FreeAgent, Xero, or QuickBooks, you're going to be able to see the invoices that you've raised against the client. You're going to be able to do the two-way sync between I've updated the address here or the email address in one of the two platforms between Engager and the finance management system, and that updates each other and it makes it all very easy. But then we also have, if I can find a working model, I probably should have thought about this beforehand. Let's go with one of these. There we go. But then if I link to my client record, my client's FreeAgent account, we then get this practice dashboard, which we can't do with any other finance management software. Sorry, Diane said she's only got a blank screen. Can everyone else see my screen?
I can see your screen, mate. Yeah.
Oh, fine, I'll carry on. So when I go on instead of clicking on invoices for a FreeAgent, if I click on insights, the beauty is that when I'm on the phone to a client and they go, "Oh, what's my profit and loss looking like for this year?" I don't need to log into FreeAgent to get that information. I can get it from Engager. So I can see the VAT return periods, start date, end date, due by, the liability, balance due to HMRC. I can see my income summary, my expense summary, my trading profit. It even tells me what my corp tax is looking like, estimated, and my retained profits, etc. I can go back to a previous year. Like, you just don't get this from anyone else. So even if you're not using FreeAgent for your own practices books, if you're using it for your clients, there is an added level of power here. And what we're looking at now with FreeAgent is what else can we put here? Because there's already other stuff available, such as balance sheet information. We could pull that through. But the conversation Stu and I had was, how do we make it so you can reactivate, reauthorize bank accounts in Engager? So that it's all in one place on a widget or something, without even having to go into FreeAgent. But yeah, it's this insight, being able to surface this straight away, is so powerful. And I mean, I can even go for a period of dates. Like, let's have a look at what my P&L is for September so far. Like, you just don't get this with any of the other solutions. And I think it's one of those things that accountants and bookkeepers aren't very aware of, is how powerful or not powerful are their APIs of who we can plug into. Like, everyone always says, "Oh, could you plug into so and so?" It's like, well, they don't have an API to plug into, so no, we can't. But then they say, "Oh, can you pull this information through from the API?" And it's like, well, actually, for Xero and QuickBooks, we can't. For FreeAgent, we might not be able to, but I know I can have that conversation with FreeAgent to do that. So if you use FreeAgent for any of your clients, make sure you're feeding back to us what you can see in FreeAgent that you think would be really helpful. If I didn't have to log into FreeAgent to see this snippet of information, I'd like it in Engager. Because yeah, we've got a really proactive partnership with them. We can certainly have that conversation. But when we were sat there playing with the API to build the original free agent integration we were looking at, Peter had a bit of a field day when he saw the practice dashboard options and, oh, we can pull in VAT returns. Would that add value? It's like, yes, 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 it would. Um, so yeah, so if you've not linked your free agent clients to Engager yet, guys, do it. You don't need to be linking your firm's books to do this. You can just do it
Mm.
through the clients. Um, and yeah, we're constantly having conversations between myself, Tony, Stu, and stuff as to how we can make this better. Um, so any suggestions anyone's got, please let us know, because we want to keep building on this. And you guys have launched all sorts of integrations recently, haven't you? I mean,
Yep.
what was it?
We So I actually wrote them down before. I hope I don't miss any. I'm sure Jem will correct me in the comments if I do. But obviously, we released our integration with yourselves and also with Zen and Connect at Accountex,
Yep.
big Accountex, which went down brilliantly. We prior to that, earlier in the year, we had fleshed out our integration with Dext, so they had added sales invoicing and a couple of other bits and pieces that were perhaps a bit lagging there. We released our integrations with Buddy, our payroll guys, and also with Expert as well at Accountex North last week. And then prior to that, we released our integration with Corpay. We also released an integration with Penfold, the pension guys, and we also launched our integration with Adsum as well. So Adsum um, are relatively new into the market and they essentially allow you to access a VAT refund quicker than if you were doing it with HMRC. So if you put your return in and then it takes 7 to 10 days for the money to come through from HMRC, with Adsum you can kind of attach it. So you say, look, I need it now. Then there's a small charge involved and then they'll give you the money sort of like 24 hours later, I think it is, rather than like having to wait 10 days for it, which can be mission critical for small businesses if they're at a bit of a pinch point. And I'm just trying to think if I've missed any out. I don't think I have. And then we also released an interesting one. I say we, it was built into us, but Revolut. Revolut have just introduced a new sort of bill paying function, which has not been, they've not been out and banged the drum big time on it yet, but there's we've seen a really kind of strong uptick in that. So that gives us another bill paying function that we're going out to. And we've got a bunch more as well. So, and we also integrate with Amazon as well now directly, which is a slightly different offering because it's what we call an add-on rather than an integration because it's paid for service now. It's just become paid for, but it's seems to have gone down really well, quite a bit cheaper than the other stuff on the marketplace. It actually works, which is really, which is a nice differentiating point from some of the other ones out there that the feedback's not been particularly great on from some of our competitors. Yeah, there's a bunch of conversations that we're having with providers that I won't sort of say the names of because um, it's it's always um, I'd rather sort of wait until we're sure that they're going to be releasing um, rather than say the names now. And then obviously we know
Yeah.
that sometimes these things just don't happen because there's other things that get in the way that you couldn't have foreseen at the time. But um, we're taking a similar approach to you guys. We're curating a list of like um, uh, preferred suppliers that we kind of want to partner with. And then obviously we're open to to it as well. And like Johan said, we've made a bunch of API improvements, and our API is fully open. There's no kind of like hurdles to jump over to get different sort of user levels or anything like that, and tends to go a bit deeper and a bit broader than some of the others as well in terms of what you can get out of it, as you've just seen from your demo. And I'm sure that we're probably due a let's get together and have an ideating session to work out what the next evolution of that integration looks like for 2025, and I think it's pretty exciting. But yeah, we've as
Ironically, I could have had that session last week on the train back to Edinburgh. So from Accountex, I sat on my train all the way back from Manchester. It's only when we got to Haymarket that Stu stood up and had been in the seat in front of me. For 4 and a bit hours. It's like, oh, we could have probably chatted a bit if we knew each other were there. Yeah, never mind.
I know Jem's on the webinar as well. Was there is there anyone I missed? I hope there's no one I missed from an integrations perspective. Yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff. They're not technically live yet out in terms of our comms, so we'll keep that one quiet. Um, just trying to think. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anyone. For CRM. Yeah, bit of smaller one in the year called Firmao, who are a yeah CRM type tool that we had. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Don't think so. I think that's it. I
Cool.
think we've
I mean,
plenty
I
more
think
coming.
it's testament to you guys the fact that they're queuing up to integrate with you.
Mhm.
Like, you don't have to go to them saying we'd like an integration. They're literally coming to you. Like, I think I witnessed the first conversation between you guys and Buddy at Accountex in May,
Mm.
and yeah, it was very much a how do we integrate into FreeAgent like Engage have just integrated into you,
Yeah, it's fun.
and
Yeah,
a few months later it's done.
it's surprising what momentum it generates having momentum. Um, it's also a timing piece as well. If we'd been having this conversation 3 years ago, the conversations were almost always we're doing stuff with Zero and with QB and possibly Sage, but not quite so much because we were sort of either side of the piece, and the business cloud stuff is still sort of in its infancy with Sage. Um, but yeah, the timing feels right as well now. I think, the bank relationship is definitely a big thing to help with that. We've got I want to say the exact figure, but somewhere up north of 190,000 quarterly active users. We measure our users very differently to everybody else. They have to actually log into the software once a quarter to count in our numbers. And
I
that
think
number is
that's a testament to your culture, though, that you are basing it on genuine factual information that these guys are using us once a quarter as a minimum. And they're
yeah.
logging in. Like, it's one of the things I did a post this morning about cancel your subscriptions. If you're not using something,
Yeah, I saw
cancel.
that, yeah.
Like, whether I do it at home, in my business, whatever it is, like, we know there is currently 35 firms paying Engager and haven't added any clients yet. Now, some of those are they're waiting to do for timing and stuff like that. But like ultimately, they're paying for something they're not using. That doesn't do us any favors. Like and it's certainly not doing their bank balance any favors, even though I think most of them are £9 a month ones. But that's still money going out, and yeah, we're very open and honest about that. And I love the fact that you guys aren't inflating your numbers with blank licenses,
No.
which we know is quite popular in the software world of accounting and bookkeeping.
I shall make no comments on others on how others massage their numbers or don't massage their numbers, but yeah, we like to stick to people that are using the software, and yeah, I just think it's good timing. We've got Jem now who manages the relationships, and Stu's team who focus on this, and there's a lot of like stars that have aligned to make those conversations much easier than they were historically, which was much more challenging on the basis of like being busy with other stuff within the industry, um, and also that free agents, the more noise you make, the more people want to buy into that. And you've had a couple of conversations this week about you've done X with this partner. Can we do something similar? And that sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not. It depends on what resource we've got available, and and how closely it aligns to our mission on what we're trying to do for our partner base. So, but it has been um, a huge win for us in the industry, kind of the integrations piece, and being able to make pals with so many different bits of like the right bits of software. I think is and there's plenty more to come. Hopefully we'll snag a couple of big ones next year as well. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled, folks.
Fantastic. Well, Tony, thank you so much for joining us, telling all of our users about FreeAgent, what you've been up to recently, and what's coming up. Um, as I've said a few times now, you don't need to be using FreeAgent for your own firm's bookkeeping to have a good integration with FreeAgent Engager. Like we can surface your client's information really easily in Engager when you're on that phone call to them, um, without having to go into FreeAgent and stuff, and that makes life just so much easier and quicker. So yeah, thank you for coming on board and having a chat. Um, is there anything you want to promote quickly to our users? Going any upcoming events or webinars you want to quickly shout out?
Mate, we got tons. So we've got so we every year we do what we call Bookkeeper Boost Week, which is a week focused on bookkeepers. Others are allowed to join, but the thrust of the content is to help out our bookkeeping community. So that starts on the 7th of October, and there's a series of webinars, one of which are on the gem, which
I
should
am.
be great. I'm doing personal branding session with Penny Allard and Philippa Haynes, which will be really insightful. Penny's wild bookkeeping journey and and how that's evolved over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. We then got our roadshow, so they're in person. So anyone that's free agent partner can sign up for those. We've got 6 of them. They start on the 17th of October and run to the 7th of November. They are in, right, let me get this right. So they're in Plymouth, London, York, Manchester, Edinburgh, and Silverstone. And we'll just be doing a kind of update on everything that's been going on in free agent, stuff that's coming up, larger expansion on a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, but in a lot more detail, and a few sneak peeks of things that are coming up and that kind of thing. We're involved in the ICB summit, Cantex virtual. We've got the webinar that we're delivering that you're on, we're delivering in October. We've got another one in November coming up, that's centered around self-assessment and some of the bits that filter into
I'm on that
that.
one as well.
Yeah, and yeah, we also launched yesterday with Rachel Harris. There was a bunch of content going out on LinkedIn about her bursary scheme, which we're sponsoring, which is a really cool initiative that we're really pleased to be part of. So yeah, mate, tons going on. Some 3 or 4 more integration launches that are coming hopefully over the rest of this year. Loads more product releases. Yeah, tons of stuff. So and
Fantastic. You're only
thank you
one.
very much. Thank you very much for having me on, mate. It's been a pleasure chatting as it always is.
Always is, yeah. Brilliant. It sounds like you guys are going to be exceptionally busy over the coming months, as we are. And I'm also pleased to say that we will be at the ICB Summit in November as well.
Nice.
Breaking news, literally, that landed in my inbox about an hour and a half ago. So, breaking news to our viewers that we will be there. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
No worries, mate.
Thank you to everyone that's joined us, asked questions, shared their views, etc. Jem has put in links to the Bookkeepers Boost Week and the self-assessment pricing strategy. I'll be talking, as Tony says, about tech stacks with Jem, and then I'll be talking about pricing strategies and making self-assessments profitable, basically. So yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.